Well, hello, everyone. We will go ahead and get started, and welcome to our virtual Meet the Dean event featuring Dr. Joe O'Shea. We are excited to engage with you today in this virtual setting. Before we get started, I wanted to remind the participants that there is a question and answer feature, so please feel free to submit a question throughout the session. By way of introduction, Dr. Joe O'Shea is a proud alumnus from FSU, earning his bachelor's degree in 2008, double majoring in interdisciplinary social science and philosophy. In 2007, he was elected as student body president and served as a member of the board of trustees for the 2007 and 2008 academic year. He was also a Rhodes Scholar recipient, and he studied at the University of Oxford. And then in 2010, he was inducted into the FSU Alumni Association Circle of Gold. And in 2013, he received the Reuben O.D. Askew Young Alumni Award. Currently in his two roles as Assistant Provost and Dean of Undergraduate Studies, he has been instrumental in the progress of the university's nationally recognized student success initiatives. So without further ado, I'm going to let him share with you more about himself, his position, and the state of undergraduate studies. Thank you, Dr. O'Shea.
Thank you, Amy. And wow, that was such a kind and generous introduction. I really appreciate that. And of course, thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy lives. I know that many of you are also alums of FSU like me, and I want to thank you in advance for being such great ambassadors of the university and for spreading the good word of FSU. And if you were able to support our great give this past week, special thanks to you as well. As Amy just said, I'm going to spend a little bit of time today just going over about me, my transition to this role, and some of our priorities, where we are, and where we look to be in the next few years in undergraduate education at FSU. So I know this is a webinar style, but please feel free to interact through the chat, send questions throughout. I can stop and answer them, or after I'm done with some slides, then we can chat then. So please feel free to make this as interactive as you'd like to be. So again, thank you, and I'll go ahead and jump in. So let me get ready to, I'm going to share my screen with you all. All right, hope you all can see that. Okay, let me jump to the next slide here. Okay, well, I thought we could start with just a little bit of time back, as Amy said, at my time as an undergraduate at FSU. You can see that sort of older picture there. Apparently I had lots more hair than I do now, but I think the university took that maybe my freshman or sophomore year. I can't remember, but I was here as a philosophy and social science major. I changed into those after starting in political science, and as you can imagine, I was pretty involved as my time as an undergraduate. I was just so grateful for being at FSU because it was so transformative for me as a student and as a thinker and as a community member to be engaged in so many different ways, academically and with the community on and off campus. And as Amy shared, I was able to, with FSU support, get a scholarship that took me to Oxford for a master's and PhD program, where I eventually shifted into education, because I remember thinking in a public policy program that I had lots of ideas, but I alone wasn't going to be able to do that much to fix these problems that we were facing in the world and societies. And I thought, well, what if I go to education? It's so fundamental, and maybe I could train an army of young people who go on to address these problems. So I started to shift into education, and I'm really grateful now that I have this leadership role at FSU, at my alma mater, in a place where I really I've been part of the community for a while and able to contribute. And so what is this Dean of Undergraduate Studies role? Many of you may not be familiar with this role, and it's the sort of has broad purview over undergraduate education at FSU. It also serves as the formal academic dean for almost all first and second year students, and oversees the Division of Undergraduate Studies. Some of you likely knew of my close friend and mentor, Karen Lockland. You can see her on the screen there. Unfortunately, she passed away suddenly in May, very unexpectedly, and I was tasked with filling that role. And of course, during the pandemic, that made it even more difficult, both mourning Karen and her loss and recognizing her accomplishments, but also filling in at a time when there was so much unrest and being remote. Plus, I had another baby. You can see in the pictures there. put up on the screen. You can see my daughter eating some chocolate cake for her second birthday there a while ago, and my son Max there, he's about 3 months, and Mr. Smiles. He's a great little man. All right. So I thought I'd just start with some context of where we are at FSU. As many as you know, if you follow the news at FSU, we have a remarkable track record of student success, of helping all students, regardless of their family background, to succeed. In fact, we have achieved a milestone a few years ago, which is just nearly unmatched in higher education, of having erased graduation and retention rate disparities. Most institutions have these big disparities based on different demographic groups and race and ethnicity or income or family background. And FSU, what's amazing is we've elevated our rates so high, but we've done so for all students, so that there isn't this big disparity between different demographic groups. And so all students succeed in that way at FSU, which is something I'm very proud of, and I think all of our alums and institutions should be very proud of too. And that, of course, has contributed to our rise in the public rankings. Many of you followed this very closely, and we are a top 20 university, a top 20 public university in America, and we're going to keep it that way. Pay very close attention and help contribute to our submissions for all those rankings. And student success is at the core of those rankings. Those retention, graduation rates, and associated metrics about our learning environment compose the most significant portions of the national rankings. And undergraduate studies is a major player in making sure we have those really robust rates. In fact, we just celebrated a four-year graduation rate in Florida at 74%. That is a record for FSU and for the state of Florida. I know it was a close watch whether University of Florida was going to be able to pull up their graduation rate numbers to compete, but we got word that we were the best top in Florida and set new records for the state university system, and that is among the top 10 public universities in the country. There are very few institutions in the country that have graduation rates like we do. And retention, which is our first year to second year retention, we celebrated 95% retention. And if some of you are familiar with our CARE program, which is for first generation lower income Floridians, they celebrated a 96.2% retention, which is higher, of course, than the general population. So that our CARE program students help to pull up the rest of the universities, which is just really remarkable success we've had here. So a lot of people ask, well, how do we do this? There's a lot of work, a lot of players, and we've been at it a very, very long time. You can see here a picture on the screen. There's a lot of people jammed in there. Obviously, that was pre-pandemic. It's hard to imagine doing that right now, but this is called our enrollment management group. That's a group that helps to coordinate a lot of our efforts at the university, but it's a major collaborative undertaking. We've been at it for over 20 years. Almost all the offices that interact with students come together regularly to look through the data, to think collaboratively and strategically about how we are designing our educational experience for students. How do we support and challenge and engage all of our students to grow to their full potential? And how do we do so holistically? So we're thinking about their full development as people, as thinkers, as future employees, as citizens. And how do we structure our programs and support to make sure every student can thrive at FSU? So it's a wonderful collaborative network that we have here at FSU to enable that. There's obviously a lot of moving parts in making sure that a student can retain and graduate and thrive at FSU fully. And put together this fancy graphic, and I think it helps to illustrate in across 6 different pillars the way we think about student success. And I'll spend a little bit of time going over these, and then I'll share some examples of each of the pillars so get a sense of how it actually manifests on campus and the way we think about it. So this is our sort of 6 pillars here to challenge, engage, and support all students from pre-admission all the way through to graduation and beyond. So the first at the top, I'll start a success team behind every student. This is all the advisors, the peer mentors, the life coaches, the alumni mentors, the peers and others that all come together to provide the kind of guidance and support and mentorship that supports students as they navigate higher education from their start through the finish. The second on the bottom here, or the second, learning communities. That's the idea of how do you make a big university small? FSU is really big. How do you make it feel psychologically small? Build a peer network for everybody that's a mentorship right when they start, and give them that kind of connection, academic focus, and engagement structure so that they have the skills and know-how to thrive at FSU. Enhanced support for teaching and learning in yellow there. That's the idea that many years ago we had lots and lots of lecture courses, but over time, we've realized, and the research has found nationally, that there are lots of different ways to teach, and our faculty have asked for support as they redesign their courses and their ways of teaching to be more active and engaging. And so we've redesigned lots of classes to make sure that they're maximally educational for all of our students, and have really seen some great success. In Garnet, experiential and global learning, those are the things that are hands-on, take you out of the classroom, things like internships, service learning, study abroad, the things that really can be high impact for a student and really catapult their personal and professional growth. Leadership and personal development, those are all the things across campus, often outside the class, that engage students, and all across the 700 plus student organizations, clubs that we have at FSU, plus all the leadership development and wellness broadly understood, from the counseling and recreation wellness, and including financial wellness there, and the financial support we provide for students to make sure that they have their kind of core basic needs of food and housing and finances in place, so that they can really engage fully in the FSU experience. And on the bottom here, college or career. This is making sure that our students have the kind of requisite skills and awareness so they can navigate through their time at FSU and onto their next chapter beyond. So that might be in graduate school or or directly into employment. And much of that is done through our work with the Career Center and associated units. So I'll jump through really quickly and look at an example of each of these pillars and how it's manifesting. So here's the first pillar I just talked about, a success team behind every student. One example that we're really proud of is this completion campaign that we launched as part of that. That we have a group called our Graduation Planning and Strategies Office, a group of team members who have advising experience, who work with students who left FSU without a degree. There's a lot of students who leave higher education. Many of you likely know some who start college but just don't. Something gets in the way, family, emergency, academic, some reason, and they just don't get a chance to finish. And unfortunately, that happens at FSU too. And there are a lot of students who would get close to finishing, but somehow, and sometimes they're even a semester away, and they have to step out. And this team works comprehensively, reaching out to students, every student who's left, who stopped out, getting a call, unless they're in another post-secondary institution, trying to get them to finish their college degree and navigating what support, financial, academic, whatever they need to try to get back in FSU and support them along the way to finish. And we just crossed this milestone of 1,500 students who have been supported since 2017 when we launched the campaign to get their degrees at FSU. So really just a wonderful accomplishment. Learning communities that I mentioned. Prime example of that is our broader Engage 100 initiative. The idea is that every new student, whether it's a first-year student as a freshman or a transfer student coming in, how do we build them a peer community that gives them some mentorship and scaffolding and skills right away, so they know how to navigate FSU successfully as a college student. And as I said, it makes a big university feel small and connects them. It's designed to facilitate their transition to college life and help them plan out some of the things that they may want to do with some guidance and mentorship. And what's really wonderful, that collaborative approach is very much alive here. We have programs and colleges and departments across campus who sponsor these, and they host them. So they might be themed around math, science, or engineering, or just generically around the idea of innovation, or how to transition the university. It's very, very great to see the breadth in which we've developed these over years. Enhanced support to teaching. You can see some examples here, the pictures, the ways that these classrooms maybe look different than some of you have recognized. But one model that we've deployed through our course redesign initiative is working with faculty to redesign courses and really think about the learning experiences of students, and making sure that all students, regardless of their academic preparation beforehand, can be supported and taught in a way that they can thrive. So in the bottom picture here, you see an example of what used to be a large lecture class with a faculty member speaking at students, to now redesigned with what are called learning assistants, the LA model. These are trained students who have taken the course, upper division, so juniors and seniors mostly, have taken the course, who are trained and then deploy out in partnership with the faculty across the course during the class time to facilitate active learning, collaborative learning, and support the students outside of class. So very much a highly engaging model of learning for students. And what's really wonderful, we've seen great success in elevating the academic performance of students across our courses, particularly in our STEM courses. Experiential and global learning. See some great pictures here of students doing some research and traveling overseas. These are really high impact. We know from our national research and research at FSU that helps students thrive at FSU here, and then also more likely to succeed in the job market and in graduate school. one example that we sponsor in undergraduate research, it's a real highlight of the institution, is this undergraduate research opportunity program in Europe, where we have hundreds and hundreds of students who engage as research assistants to our professors and to our graduate students across the institution, doing research across all different majors, in creative writing, just to at the Mag Lab and the social sciences, all across the disciplines. Leadership and personal development, I mentioned all these organizations and that we have for students. One example with undergraduate research, or undergraduate studies, our National Fellowships Office works, and I was a beneficiary of this office. They work very closely with lots of students who are applying for awards, thinking deeply about their leadership and how they're going to contribute to society and supporting their efforts. The last pillar, college and career, this is really helping students think about what competencies and skills the market requires for their aspirations, helping them think through what they want to do, help them guide them to experiences that will build those skills, help them clarify those skills, and importantly, help them communicate their competencies. A lot of students develop things along the way that skills and awareness and information and knowledge that are just really impressive, but it's sometimes hard for them to articulate, particularly in a job search or an application, the true transformation in their maturation. And so we help them think through that. And of course, many of you know, we've launched a new entrepreneurship college at the university, but that really spans the whole institution, thinking about how entrepreneurship and innovation is sprinkled throughout our undergraduate curriculum, so all students are exposed to that kind of thinking and training, and that we're able to highlight students' work through our career portfolios and through our career fairs and virtual platforms. Obviously, those have changed a lot during the pandemic as students meet with employers, but we've really celebrated the kind of skill development that we can provide for students over their time at FSU. So where are we going next? There's a lot of unknowns in the world, as many of you know, and a lot of fiscal unknowns with the pandemic. But we have not diverted from our strategic focus on student success, and we're going to continue to amplify across those 6 pillars I mentioned. There are a few key areas I wanted to talk about to you that don't encompass all of the priorities, but are some key priorities. If you haven't met or know of Deontay Brown, he's our wonderful new director. We were able to recruit him back to FSU from Clemson. Fortunately, he's just a great scholar and practitioner who is our assistant dean for undergraduate studies and director of our CARE program. CARE, as many of you know, supports our first generation lower income student population. That's about 1,800 students total right now, but we actually have about 8,000 students who are first generation college students at FSU. It's a really diverse population now and continues to grow. And we want to think through how we are supporting that population at FSU broadly, and CARE and Deontay is going to be key pillar in thinking through how we expand the support to beyond the 1,800 that we currently do, to try to reach a greater percentage who might need extra resources and support at FSU. Of course, one piece of our CARE program is our Unconquered Scholars program, and making sure that we provide full support for that population. There's about 150 of those students on campus right now. Those are students who have aged out of foster care, or homeless, or in relative care award of the state status. And this, of course, means also thinking about making sure that we're accessible as an institution and partnering very closely with admissions, and that we work through our high school partners across the state and beyond to make sure that we are welcoming and supportive of the variety of pathways students come to FSU. Transfer student services is another key priority. We have a lot of students transferred to the university, either lower division students coming from another university or from a community college or state college after earning their AA. And frankly, I'm not sure as a university we've made the investments that we need to fully provide the proactive support for those prospective students, whether at state colleges when they're thinking about coming to FSU, to their transition here, to all the way to success. And we want to really amplify that, to bring them together and provide this kind of sense of community and programming support that we think that they need and deserve. And so we'll be expanding that in coming years. Our experiential global learning, we actually have a graduation requirement now to do experiential learning at FSU. So we're working on expanding and fundraising, thinking about how we deploy our resources to make sure every student can undertake these kind of life-changing, transformative experiences. Of course, we need alumni to help us get there. A lot of these things like internships need an employer partner or some kind of partnership so that students have a place to do the internship and the mentorship. And we'd love to, if any of you are interested in that, to think through how you might engage in supporting our students. Okay, that is the end of my formal slides. But I know we had some questions come in, and I hope that some of you have some questions now. This is just sort of scratching the surface in what we do at FSU in undergraduate education, but I hope it gave you a sort of a broad 30,000-foot view of where we are and where we're trying to head. So greatly appreciate you taking some time to listen to me. Thanks. All right, Amy.
Thank you, Joe. And yes, actually, I was just submitted a question that has to do with transfer students. So they want to know, can transfer students get on-campus housing?
Yes, yeah. Transfer students are eligible for on-campus housing. We have unfortunately, we don't have enough residential housing on FSU to just open up all the time. We generally have wait lists. But yes, transfer students are welcome. Graduate students too do live on campus, so that is a possibility. The bulk of our residents on campus tend to be our first-year students. So we usually have maybe almost 6,000 of those on campus, and those students. So and we know how high impact it is, and we continue to work with University Housing and our partners there to really deepen the educational experience and the support we provide for students in housing. It's such a powerful learning environment for students. And I think a lot of students during this pandemic have really missed that learning opportunity. And I anticipate that in the next year, we'll see really robust demand for that kind of communal living at a higher rate and to share in community with one another.
Thank you. And we just got one submitted live. How have Florida State's efforts in recruiting, retaining, and supporting students with disabilities looked? Are there any goals associated with that, or campus accessibility and disability awareness?
That's a great point. I think I'm really glad that question was asked, because it's something we take seriously. I think unfortunately, in many national conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion, persons with disabilities often are not seen as on the forefront, and I think that's very unfortunate. And we've tried to take that pretty seriously at the university. We actually just recently hired a national advocate for persons with disabilities who led some work in the state of Florida nationally. And so thinking that doing that work means being on the front end, being proactive with students who are prospective students, to make sure people know what kind of community and belonging we have here and accommodations, and that our physical built environment is designed for their success, to make sure that there's a sense of belonging and community. We actually have, as one of those Engage 100 learning communities that I mentioned, we have one that is specifically designed for students with disabilities and actually led by our group of students with disabilities. It's actually a student-led initiative called the University of Choice, designed to be making FSU a university of choice for students with disabilities. And so we want to make sure we're welcoming for all students so that we enable their success. Another dimension of disability that we've really been focusing on is students with learning disabilities, with comprehension or reading or mathematics, or sometimes like ADHD, and making sure that we, in fact, I have a meeting after this talking about how we expand our fundraising support to make sure that all students who need educational evaluation testing for perhaps a disability can afford that, and that we subsidize it as an institution or through fundraising, so they can all engage and get the kind of accommodations that we can provide through our Office of Accessibility Services.
Great, thank you so much. What role does the innovation and entrepreneurship play into the overall undergraduate experience?
I'm glad you asked that too. That's a great question, and I touched on it a little bit. There's been a lot of recognition recently because of the $100 million gift from the Jim Moran Foundation. The Jim Moran College of Entrepreneurship was established. We also created something called the Innovation Hub at the university to do innovation thinking, very technology focused, but then also design thinking focused. And I think that work speaks to the university's recognition that there's a rapidly changing and complex labor market and society out there, both for work with companies and as an employee, but also as our work as community members and as citizens, that we need to be entrepreneurially minded. We need to be innovative in our approaches, and those mindsets need to be cultivated and trained while students are in college, and then we can provide students with that kind of training while they're here. we seeded the university with entrepreneurs in residence. We've got the college, and we're, in fact, about 13% of our students who graduated this past year took an entrepreneurship innovation course. We're projected to grow that to 17% in the coming years and continue to grow. So that's a very important part of the kind of skills and competencies we want to provide to students so that they can address the real challenges of today and work together in complex and diverse teams to address them.
Great, and I know that you're going to really enjoy talking about this one because I know this is important to you. So how will you support initiatives related, how does UGS work with admissions on diversity recruitment? Okay, great. That's great questions from everybody. I really appreciate this. So I touched on there some of the work we're doing with CARE, but we partner very closely with admissions. I think the university admissions team is seriously focused on how we honor our mission as a public university and be as inclusive and accessible as we possibly can. And undergraduate studies, we don't oversee admissions directly, but we work very closely, particularly through honors and CARE and through help of our recruitment programs, making sure that we can provide pathways. So our work with CARE, for instance, stretches from pre-collegiate. So we do K through 12 work, sponsored through some state and federal grants that reach out to local and regional populations, support their college going experiences. And then we support our high school partners program, working with high schools in North Florida and other places around the state to make sure that we can provide the kind of guidance and on-demand real-time assistance that students may need from historically underrepresented backgrounds or underserved backgrounds. We've continued to diversify our honors program. We want to continue to grow the support we provide for CARE students. We've really celebrated a very rich diversity. And I think this broader investment in student success that we've made that has enabled all students to succeed here, regardless of background, I hope is a compelling draw for students from all backgrounds to come to FSU, because it's a place that's going to really care about you and nurture you and support your growth, regardless of where you are. A follow-up question to that. What kind of recognition on the university-wide DEI committee does undergraduate studies have representation? Yeah, so that's so the university president established a task force that's helping to steer some of the efforts that have been ongoing at the university and think about expanding them. We have we're involved pretty heavily in a few different subcommittees. We have a member of the senior group, the senior steering committee, but we're mostly involved in a subcommittee that deals with recruitment and retention of students. We actually just met to look at how we expand diversity within honors and our merit-based programs at the university. We also, within undergraduate studies, have our own equity, diversity, and inclusion task force. And I was just celebrating last night because Deontay, who's a national expert in doing this, Deontay Brown, our new assistant dean and director of CARE, who led Clemson's efforts around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and has done significant doctoral research in this space within higher education, has agreed to help lend his expertise to facilitate our group within undergraduate studies as we move forward and set metrics for ourselves and hold ourselves accountable to the progress that we can make. So very excited to continue to do that work and to prioritize that when we can make resource allocations. Kind of switching gears here, I love the different type of questions that we've gotten. Somebody saw in an article about one of the books that you're writing about gap year and how delaying college changes people in ways the world needs. Can you talk about the gap year and your thoughts on how a gap year can contribute to retention? Okay. Yeah, I wrote that book a few years ago. And that was in part a reflection of some doctoral research I'd done when I was in England. If you're not familiar, in England, it's very common to do gap years prior to enrolling in college. And as an American, I thought, boy, that's a really interesting phenomenon that so many people do this thing before they go to college if they just don't go straight through like I did. What do they do? Why do they do that? And so doing some scholarship and some research in that area, I think it's our research has found there and in the US that it can be, as we've seen with experiential learning, as I mentioned, with internships and study abroad and service learning, incredibly transformative for students. And to do that at a pivotal point, right when they graduate from high school,
can give them the kind of orientation and awareness and sense of motivation and skill building. So when they get to college, they are really firing on all cylinders, ready to learn with a new sense of clarity and professional motivation that would likely not have existed had they not done the gap year. And so as a system of higher education, I think we ought to be encouraging these types of experiences because they really help students thrive in higher education and reduce the likelihood that they drop out. Unfortunately, among four-year universities like FSU, only 60% of students who start there will actually even finish. I mean, and it's been stagnant for so many years that 40% of the students who start at four-year colleges don't finish. And we know that experiential learning, the kind you do in gap years and the kind that you can do while you're at college, can be really powerful in helping students retain and graduate and do well here. And so we want to keep that in our toolbox. FSU sponsors a gap year program. I just did a webinar actually yesterday with some high school guidance counselors around the country to share information about that. We're one of the few public universities that really leans into gap year education as a form of education and as an intervention to support students. So we're really supportive of that, and it looks like more institutions across the country are really leaning into that and looking at it as a way to support student success.
Yeah, that's great. And this is kind of switching gears, but I'll be very interested to see your answer for this one as well. As someone who's been in higher education for a while, do you have any recommendations for those aiming to work in student affairs and or higher education administration at Florida State or elsewhere?
It's a good question. Well, I suppose like we tell students, I think trying to get the widest breadth of experience to really throw yourself into the challenges, the problems. Higher education, I think, is really fun because it's working with within large political institutions, but also dealing with human development and politics and finance. It's all at the same time, and there's a lot of moving parts that often are unseen or not understood because you just don't have to work with them. And I think for an aspiring professional in this space, I would really encourage them to try to get the breadth of experience in different sectors of higher education, different component parts, and really throw themselves into the problems. There's so many challenges, particularly right now. It's despite the many disadvantages of being in a pandemic and all the consequences, it's a great learning opportunity to really think about how higher education can operate and adapt and the challenges you're going to pursue. Great mentorship, and I think also being really empirically focused, thinking about what does the research tell us? You can do a lot of things in higher education, you can spend a lot of money, but we've got to be serious about how we are stewards of taxpayers' money or donor money to make sure that we are making investments that really make the most impact for students and for our state and our country. And research can help us identify that and has, so making sure that we're very empirically minded and using the latest cutting edge work and guidance to steer our effort. So familiarizing yourself with that as a regular habit. What is the scholarship? What is the research? And how to do that is I think, really important, increasingly important as people move forward in their careers. I'd be happy to mentor anybody who's on here and wants to talk more. I would love to do that. I love talking to students who are interested in pursuing higher ed.
Great, thank you. And now they know you are accessible, so that's great too. When we think about rankings, what would you say to top performing students? What would be the one takeaway that you'd want them to know about Florida State as a prospective student?
That's a great question. Yeah, you mentioned rankings in your answer. Yeah, I think the rankings are a piece, but I think students pay attention to rankings, and we're a top ranked school. But I think when you really get to the substance of it, FSU is a very special place. It's a reason why I came back here and I continue to work here. It is such a unique place and really unmatched in higher education. I think for a few reasons. I think principally it is a real sense of community that cares deeply about students, and the people, the faculty and staff and fellow students are going to go out of their way to make sure you are cared about and supported here. Especially at a big public university with a lot of research activity happening. We've got hundreds of millions of dollars of research of all kinds going on. It can seem like you might get lost or just a number. that doesn't happen at FSU. You're a person, and we care deeply about you. But what's so amazing is that personal connection, which you may only find at such a real small private college, is matched with a major national research university. So you get to go and you get the personal care and support, but with the resources and experiences of some of the best thinkers, the best researchers, and the best facilities in the entire world. So you get this incredible resource-rich environment with the personal attention of a small private. So it's such a unique combination for us, and it's so diverse here now, increasingly so. So you get such a wonderful learning environment that is transformative. It was for me, and it can be for you. And we will make sure that you are great here, and that we get the resources and the opportunities for you to really thrive, to do what you want to do, and accomplish your goals.
Thank you. And we actually have somebody with their hand raised, so I am going to let her speak.
Great.
You may go ahead, Alexa.
Hi, Joe. This is Alexa Kelly. I graduated in 2016. I just wanted to congratulate you on all this hard work. As an alumna who has some time in another state and outside of Florida State, I can really speak to that small school feel that FSU really fostered, as well as just how amazing the Year Up program has affected my life, my career, my outlook. So I guess I'm just saying, keep up the good work, because it's really it's doing a lot for people. So congrats.
Oh, it's so wonderful to hear from you, and thank you for that. It's so heartwarming to see that our programs and the mentorship here really had an important role in your trajectory. And please do stay in touch, and we'd love to continue to support you. And maybe Amy can bring you back to talk to some more students and to share your wisdom and guidance. We'd love to have you engaged with the university community and with students, and really appreciate all that you did for FSU. Thank you for your time here. And it sounds like you're being a great ambassador across the country where you are of FSU. So thanks for doing that.
Might ask you a tough question here. We'll see. What do you see in the next 3 to 5 years as being one of our top strategic challenges that we're going to face with transition and with trying to stay in the top 20?
Well, I think on everybody's mind is money right now. Federal government just passed a nearly $2 trillion stimulus bill. That money is non-recurring. And the budget forecasts for Florida don't necessarily look very optimistic. So I think we have, of course, a transition with a new president, and then other leadership positions that will be filled afterward. That, I think, setting a new direction for the university, or at least continuing with some new leadership, is going to be coupled with a resource challenge environment that is that's going to be difficult for the university to navigate. Fortunately, we have a very strong financial footing, growing student enrollment, great student success. So financially, we're in a very good place compared to almost all public institutions in the country. But fiscally, it's going to be a tricky situation for higher education broadly. And we'll have to be very thoughtful about how we navigate that, how we build new programs, how we continue to draw in students and support them, and communicate our value to the state of Florida and to the legislature, so that they see the value in continuing to invest in public higher education in Florida, and amid very difficult budget decisions that they're going to have to make. So we'll look to other revenue sources, to philanthropy, and to enrollment to help us navigate these. But as many of you know, it takes you have to have money to make a lot of these programs work. And so to expand this, to do the kind of support that we want to do, that are key to bolstering our ranking, that are key to continuing to support students and expand our support, we need resources to do so. So I think that's going to be the central strategic challenge for our institution, to make sure that it can enable the kind of success that we want and our students and our state deserve.
And I don't know if you can answer this, but if you had to project, would you say that we will still be in the top 20 in this next year?
Yes.
There you go.
Yes, we project that. It's a very difficult environment and very competitive. As you get higher in the rankings, the competition gets more and more intense, and it's a game of inches. Every little metric matters, but we've gathered the data we're actually getting ready to submit our portfolio to US News across the various metrics that they have. And so I think we're looking good, but the unknown is how they will change. They may change their metrics like they did last year. They just introduced new ones. And without telling us, we don't know that. We also don't know what our peer institutions are going to do. What is Penn State going to do? Who knows? Or Purdue, or some of the ones that are really close to us, or University of Georgia, the schools that are right around us. I'm confident that we can continue a top 20 tradition. And in fact, we've been communicating to the legislature our ambition to be a top 15 and long-term a top 10 public university in America. I think we can get there. If we have the right resources, we know how to strategically deploy them. We're continually to be one of the most efficient universities in the country. If we have the resources, we can make it happen. We can become a top 10 public university in the country, no question.
That's what I like to hear. I'm going to wrap up with a fun, lighthearted question. You are an FSU family, and even you and I were talking before this about your siblings, both Florida State graduates as well. What is your favorite Florida State memory? And you already talked about why you tell students to choose FSU, but tell us why you chose FSU and what your favorite memory was.
Okay. I guess I'll start with why I chose, and then the favorite memory. My older brother, actually, at the time was no longer alive, but he was at the University of Florida when I was a high school student thinking about college. And I remember going up to Tallahassee for like a competition thing I was doing, and visiting the university, and the messaging was I thought was the kind I think I still feel, and I mentioned today. It's like, especially in contrast to other institutions, was so welcoming and so supportive, and had a sense of humility, and was about my personal growth and the care for me that they would have, and the opportunities I would have to really grow here. That sense of warmth and compassion and humility and generosity was, and that strong sense of community you could really feel. It really resonated with me. I really wanted to be part of that sense of community, and a community that had those kind of values and really supported students in that way. So that really drew me to FSU, and I saw that it was a place where I thought I could thrive there. And I was also interested in political science at the time. I thought being in the capital would be a neat advantage. And my favorite memory, well, you already mentioned my siblings. I have so many good memories of FSU. It's really part of so much of my identity now. You didn't mention this, but my wife also was an alum, and I think maybe one of my favorite memories is meeting her. When I was a sophomore, she was a freshman. I was meeting her, and then convincing my sister to let me go to her brunch at her sorority so I could meet for the second time Jenna, my wife now, and maybe I was stalking her, but meet her and then continue to follow up. And obviously that has become my wife, and we've had a couple of children together now. So that, I think back to those moments and early days of our relationship so fondly, and grateful that FSU was the place where we met, and the university fostered our relationship. So.
Thank you for sharing. And I do think that Florida State is a really easy place to be able to call home. So thank you.
Yeah,
and
that's a great way to describe the university. An easy place to call home. I should use that more. Yeah, it's really great.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for presenting to everyone today and for answering everyone's questions. And thank you to those who were emailing me questions, texting me questions, submitting them here. It was really great opportunity to get to hear from you in this virtual format. So I just want to encourage everybody, as I need to in my job, to stay connected, stay engaged, stay connected with Friends of Honor Scholars and Fellows, with the Division of Undergraduate Studies, with your specific programs, with the University Alumni Association as a whole. But the more you stay engaged, the more you will get out of the relationship with your alma mater. So last, I hope that we will be able to invite you in the fall for an in-person event, hopefully at homecoming. So stay tuned, and I wish you all the best. I hope you have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you taking some time to learn about FSU and to contribute. So thanks so much. I really appreciate it.